Hey guys, tonight we're hiking up a lonely moss-slick path toward a lake that doesn't appear on every map, and for good reason. On nights like this, with the full moon leaking silver through skeletal trees and fog coiling low over the reeds, the locals say the old church bell tolls from beneath the water. And sometimes, if you're really quiet like holding your breath and praying quiet, you might hear singing. Not from above the lake, no, from below. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you're listening from. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're alone though, you're trying not to think about that too much, as your boots squish down a path barely wide enough for one person. The air tastes like moss and old wood. You pass a sign, faded and splintered, that says Lake Erinmere in hand-painted Gothic script. Below it carved shakily into the wood with something far less precise. Don't listen after the third bell. You're probably thinking this is where any reasonable person would turn back. But you just tighten your backpack straps, mutter, cool, and keep walking. The lake appears slowly, like it's deciding whether to show itself. You first spot the silver glow, then the cattails, then the water itself, flat as glass. Except there's no reflection of the moon. It's as if the lake just eats it. You set up camp on the ridge above the shoreline. You've brought a small tent, a camp chair, and a thermos full of something warm. Don't worry, it's decaf, though. Frankly, sleep might not be on the menu tonight. The locals say that every full moon at the stroke of midnight, the bell tolls once from the bottom of Lake Erinmere. Not some full moons, every full moon. Like it's on a haunted Apple Watch or something. No one alive has ever seen the bell, but almost everyone around here claims to have heard it. And the tales all start the same, a low vibration in the chest, like your ribs are a tuning fork. Then the air thickens. Then, gong-gu. You're watching the lake when it happens. Not the bell, not yet. First there's the fog. It rolls across the surface in a perfect swirling sheet. No breeze, no ripples. Just fog sliding like a soft white quilt across a glass table. You blink once and realize you can't see the far end of the lake anymore. That's when you notice the birds have gone quiet. If you've ever been in a forest when everything goes still, you know that silence has a sound. It's thick, and it presses. You check your phone. 11:53 p.m. You laugh nervously because laughing is your go-to response when you're about to soil your hiking pants. Then it comes. The bell, low, hollow, as if someone took thunder, aged it in a cathedral for 200 years and struck it with a bone. You freeze. You feel it in your jaw. Your thermos shakes gently against the chair arm. You don't know how long it echoes, it just is, and then it isn't. No one answers the bell. The fog just thickens. Then a second toll. Your skin prickles. That one wasn't far off. It sounded closer. You squint at the lake. The center looks darker now, like the water's deeper than before. Your mind starts adding things up, but it's late, and your brain is doing that thing where it would really rather be watching cat videos right now. A third bell, and something answers it. Not a voice, not quite. More like the idea of a voice. A soft echo, a distant harmony. Then it stops. You are sitting very still now. Even your heartbeat has gone quiet, like it's holding its breath. One of the earliest records of Lake Erinmere's mystery comes from a travel diary written in 1806 by a woman named Eleanor Merritt. She was the wife of a merchant and wrote extensively about her travels through rural England. In her entry for August 12th, she described camping beside a lake, from which rose fog unnatural and choking in density, and wrote that she heard a tolling from the depths, which did stir my blood most foully. Not your average vacation blog. But here's the fringe bit. An old church registry found in 1891 lists a bell from a parish called St. Caelan's weight 1.2 tons cast in 1724. Last recorded as lost in flood. Thing is, there's no record of any building called St. Caelan's in this region. No ruins, no foundation. It's as if it rang itself into the lake and took the town with it. Historians still argue whether the lake ever truly swallowed a village at all. Some say it's just folklore built around natural sinkholes. Others think it's a repressed memory of plague burials. One particularly cheerful theory. The village made a deal with something dark, and when it defaulted, the lake rose. You finally lie down in your tent. Every little noise feels exaggerated, twigs cracking like bones, leaves scraping like nails. But the worst part is the water. You swear you can still hear it singing. Not loud, not even clear. Just a soft rise and fall, like someone humming a lullaby from far away. You tell yourself it's just wind, that you're just tired. But then there's a splash. Something enters the lake. Not falls, not crashes, enters. Like it walked in. You don't move, you don't even breathe. The bell tolls once more quietly this time, and the humming fades. You wake with a jolt, but there's no sound, no splash, no humming, just the pale gray whisper of dawn bleeding through your tent walls. You scramble out, breath hitching. The lake looks like it's always looked, still reflective, deceptively normal. Mist clings to the surface in shreds, retreating with the night. If not for the cold sweat clinging to your neck and the 4 indents your fingernails left in your palm, you could almost believe you imagined everything. Almost. Your boots squelch on damp ground as you walk to the edge. A single footprint, not yours, too narrow and too long, gets right at the waterline. You blink. Gone. You mutter something that is for legal reasons, not profanity, and pour yourself a thermos cup of tea. But you're hooked now. Of course you are. You're the kind of person who can't walk past a locked door without jiggling the handle. You start asking around. You visit the tiny, haphazard local library that smells like mildew and ghost farts. You chat with the town's unofficial historian, a guy named Fred, who runs a bait shop and thinks Bigfoot is probably just shy. He's the one who tells you about the map. Look for the Ordnance Survey of 1794. He says, eyes twinkling, back when the lake didn't exist, and he's right. You find the map in a cracked leather binder tucked between 2 completely unrelated books, one about ancient Roman aqueducts and one about modern hedgehog care. Welcome to Rural Archives. The map shows a village, not a lake, a full-on classic English hamlet. Thatched roofs, cobbled roads, a small church at the center, all labeled in tiny script, Caelan's Hollow. And then there's a red line drawn by hand through the entire village dated 1795. The word beside it subsumed. No rainfall record shows a flood that year. You return to your campsite that night, stomach tight. This time you don't set up the tent. You just sit on a folding chair with a lantern notebook and enough caffeine to fuel a small dissertation. The moon rises. The fog returns, and at midnight the bell tolls. This time you're ready. You count seconds, 7, 10, 15. Then the second toll. It vibrates through your chair like a subway train rolling underneath. A whisper follows, not words, just tone. The third toll, and that's when you see her, just standing there, in the lake, mid-thigh deep white gown. face tilted upward like she's catching moonlight on her cheeks. She sings. The sound is heartbreak-made music. Melancholy and memory sung in a language that might not even exist anymore. The kind of tune you'd hum without knowing why one foggy morning years from now. And she is looking at you, not quite directly, but just enough for your skin to go taut like a stretched drumhead. You do not wave, you do not call out, you do not blink. She tilts her head like a curious bird, then slowly begins to walk backward, into the water, until she vanishes below the surface with not so much as a ripple. You make the very brave decision to nope out and sprint back to your car, peeling out with gravel spitting behind you. You return the next day, of course. You always were more curious than smart. This time you bring research. You've dug up local legends, including a particularly strange tale, collected by folklorist Eleanor Hemsley in the 1930s. She spent 2 years in the area, recording oral histories and tea-based gossip, and wrote about a drowned bride who sings at moonrise, seeking her lost beloved whose name none can speak without misfortune. Cheerful stuff. She also documented a local superstition. Never say the village's name aloud after sunset. Not the modern one, the old one, Kalen's Hollow. Oops. Historians still argue whether the singing bride myth stems from pagan sacrifice tales or Christian martyrdom lore. Some say she was a priestess. Others claim she was just a miller's daughter caught in the wrong place at the wrong celestial alignment. Either way, the tune she sings has turned up in several places. Hum fragments in lullabies carved into the wooden frame of a weathered cradle. Even scratched on the inside of a centuries-old coffin lid discovered in a nearby bog, because apparently sleep wasn't supposed to be peaceful back then. You sit at the lake for hours hoping to see her again, but nothing stirs. So you start asking a different question. Why is the bell ringing? It's not a chime of invitation. It feels like a warning, a count, a clock. 3 tolls. 3 chances, 3 doors, 3 souls. No one knows. But Fred Baitshop Fred mentions something else. There was a kid, once he says baiting a hook, early 90s, swore he saw someone come out of the lake, tried to follow the footprints, and wasn't seen again. Cool, 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 cool. That night you return to the lake once more. Yes, again. Look, you're deep into it now. Might as well get your loyalty card punched. This time you bring a friend, because safety in numbers, right? Your friend is deeply skeptical, also deeply snack-focused. They brought trail mix. They are not emotionally prepared. The bell rings. 1, 2, 3, and again the humming. But now there's movement. Not just the woman. More shapes in the water. At least 5, maybe 6. All standing silently staring up at the moon. Then the singing starts. This time it's not one voice, it's a choir. Your friend drops their trail mix. You just whisper, "Don't move." The figures raise their arms in unison, as if calling to something or someone. Then in eerie coordination, they sink straight down, like puppets yanked by invisible strings. The lake stills, the fog drifts, and the chill sets in. You do not sleep that night. You do not even blink. You just wonder how many people were in Kalen's Hollow when the lake took it, and how many still remain beneath it. You spend the next day indoors. Not because you're scared, of course. No. You just suddenly remember you have indoor priorities, like reading obscure folklore journals and drinking alarming amounts of tea. Okay, fine, you're a little shaken. Your friend bailed this morning, citing important laundry, and absolutely not getting ghost-snatched thanks. Fair. You don't blame them. But you're not done yet. You comb through records. You dive into archives so dusty your lungs are now partially composed of historical sediment. And then you find something odd in a 1911 church log, a list of souls unaccounted for during the Great Sinking, dated 1795. 37 names, no cause of death, no burial markers, just a sentence beneath them. Their voices remain, though the mouths are gone. You're not entirely sure if that's poetic or just horrifying. The church in question stood near the center of Kalen's Hollow, probably where the bell sound is coming from. But no one knows what happened to it. Some say it was buried by a government water project, but no one can show you permits or plans. Others whisper it was a punishment, some forgotten curse, leveled against the villagers for what they did. Of course, no one agrees what that was. Historians still argue whether Kalen's Hollow was destroyed by natural flooding, early industrial sabotage, or something more ritualistic. A few fringe researchers even suggest the entire site aligns with ancient ley lines, those invisible currents of mystical energy said to connect sacred spaces across Britain. You know, like Glastonbury Stonehenge and probably the weird goose-shaped hill your aunt thinks cures arthritis. But you're after something tangible. So you hike? Yes, hike. You take the old sheep trail that winds up the hill overlooking the lake, a path only mentioned in a handwritten note from an 1850s farmer's almanac that smells like feet. You reach the summit just as the sun begins its slow dissolve into twilight, and then you see it, a ring, not made of stone or grass, but of warped trees, 7 in all, arching inward like they're bowing to something. At the center, a slab of stone, weather-worn, barely readable. You brush away moss with your sleeve. 3 words are carved there, stay with her. Cool, just super comforting. There are old candles around the slab, dribbles of wax from long ago rituals, and a scattering of bones animal you hope. One skull has a faint gouge mark across the top, like someone tried to split it with a dull blade. Probably totally normal woodland activities. Then the wind shifts and you hear it again, the singing. But this time it's coming from above. You look up. There's a shimmer in the air, like heat haze but colder, and a shape, faint flickering. Someone is walking across the sky, no, not the sky, across a bridge of moonlight that stretches over the lake, visible only from this hilltop. And they are not alone. More figures emerge. Each step echoes like distant bells, low and hollow. They wear strange garments, robes of old wool faces obscured by veils. One holds something that looks like a lantern, but glows with a dull red light from within. Not flame, something deeper. You reach for your phone, because of course you do. But the screen goes black, then flashes a single word in that creepy, corrupted font way. Listen. Then the screen dies. Well, okay, no pictures tonight. You settle on watching, just watching. The figures make their way across the moonlit bridge toward the center of the lake. Then they vanish like they were never there, and the lake returns to stillness. You descend slowly, feet crunching old leaves, brain full of thoughts you'd rather not unpack alone. You sleep uneasily that night back in your tent. At least you think you sleep. You dream of bells tolling underwater, of faces pressed against the inside of your eyes, of your own voice singing something ancient you've never heard before. You wake with blood under your fingernails. Not yours. Yeah, that's new. So what now? You need context. More than cryptic stones and ghost parades. You drive to the county museum, 2 towns over a marvel of early 2000s beige architecture and fluorescent lighting. You meet Claire, the curator, who is approximately 90% cardigans and 10% unshakable confidence. She listens carefully, nods, doesn't laugh once. Then she says you need to see the Mitchell Journal. She takes you into the back, past rows of taxidermy that all look like they regret their life choices. She pulls a worn leather-bound book from a locked cabinet. Found this in 1897, she says, inside a sealed tin box. Floated up after a drought dropped the lake levels. The journal belonged to Reverend Elias Mitchell, the last known priest of Kalen's Hollow. His final entries are unhinged. The lake calls in tongues, unmade one says. Another we built the chapel over her bones. She sleeps, but we are fools to think she forgets. You reread that one 3 times. Then there's this: every full moon she wakes and sings. Not for joy, for memory. She sings until the bell tolls thrice. If the bell tolls a 4th, may God forgive us. And under that, in a different hand, shaky smeared with what looks like ash. There was a 4th toll last night. You shut the journal very slowly, and suddenly you're very, very aware that tomorrow night is a full moon. You're up before dawn, because apparently sleep is now optional. The full moon is tonight, and that journal entry about a 4th toll won't stop echoing in your skull like a mosquito you can't swat. You read it again this morning just to punish yourself a little more. It still ends the same way. So what do? You buy snacks. Because snacks are grounding. You also buy candles, salt, a sketchy paranormal protection bracelet from a gas station gift rack. And because impulse decisions are your jam, a waterproof lantern shaped like a frog. Hey, maybe she likes frogs. The idea that she is real now seems entirely plausible. And you're starting to think she's not just a tragic lady ghost humming sad lullabies. She might be something older, something no one buried deep enough. Folklore is peppered with drowned maiden spirits that linger near water, vengeful or sorrowful, or just lonely. But there's an unsettling thread across centuries of British myth. The lady in the lake isn't always a woman. Sometimes she's a force, a guardian, a warning. In ancient Celtic traditions, bodies of water were often believed to be portals, thresholds between worlds. People tossed offerings into lakes, rivers, and wells to appease the spirits within. Gold, tools, even the occasional sacrificial animal or person. One particularly weird tidbit you find in Iron Age site where archaeologists uncovered a preserved bog body with her lips sewn shut using fine copper wire. She was buried next to a curved stone carved with concentric circles matching the layout of Kalen's Hollow as shown on a 1760 survey map. Coincidence, you tell yourself yes, but historians still argue whether these bog burials were sacred rites or executions meant to prevent something from returning. Some say the victims were oracles chosen because they heard too much. Others just scapegoats. And you, well, you've definitely heard too much now. You head back to the lake just before dusk, stomach twisting, like a washing machine set to anxiety cycle. The sky is bruised with clouds, but they scatter as the moon rises, full, silvery, sharp-edged. You follow the ridge trail again, the one that gives the best view. You're not alone this time. 3 people are already there. A woman in her 50s wearing hiking boots and a heavy scarf. A teenage boy with a battered Polaroid camera. And a guy your age sipping something suspicious from a thermos labeled "definitely not whiskey." No one speaks. You all just nod at each other the way people do when silently agreeing. Yes, this is weird, and no, I won't be explaining my presence either. You settle on the ground back against the cold trunk of one of the warped trees, and then the air changes. The wind dies completely. The moonlight intensifies, bleaching the lake's surface into silver glass, and the singing begins. So faint at first you wonder if it's wind whistling through reeds. But then you hear words, not English, not Latin, something older. The syllables rise and fall, like waves, vowels stretched, long consonants, guttural and wet. The boy with the Polaroid snaps a photo. The camera ejects the film with a soft click. And that's when the first bell tolls. Low and metallic, as if struck underwater. The sound ripples through your bones. No visible bell, no church tower, just sound. The woman in the scarf mutters, "That's one." You don't ask how she knows, she just does. Another 5 minutes, second toll. This one comes with a chill breeze that smells like moss and rust. And something else, wet soil. No, blood. Then the singing rises, joined now by voices that weren't there before. Children, dozens, maybe hundreds, all singing the same melody but slightly out of sync, like an echo loop built on grief. The third toll comes faster than expected. You look at the lake. Shapes are forming, not just figures on a bridge. This time, entire structures emerge. Beneath the surface, glimpses of walls, rooftops, windows flickering with candlelight. Kalen's hollow. You're seeing it, and it's moving. Shadows drift behind the glassy surface, like townspeople going about a normal evening lighting fires. Closing shutters, ringing their little market bells. Then something changes. The air compresses around you, like the atmosphere itself holds its breath. The boy drops his camera. The woman grips her scarf like it might fly off. The fourth toll hits like a fist to your chest, and everything freezes. The submerged town vanishes. The voices stop mid-note. The lake boils. Not literally, but the surface shivers, concentric circles radiating outward from its center. And she rises, not all the way, just a face, pale, eyes wide and dark. Hair floating around her like seaweed. Her mouth opens and you expect to scream, but there's nothing. Just a silence that fills your ears so completely, your heartbeat feels like a drum solo in a vacuum. Then she speaks, no lips move. Her voice is inside your skull. You brought it back. You don't know what it is, but she's looking right at you. Yes, you. Not scarf woman, not whiskey guy, not even the camera kid. You. She begins to sink again slowly, like she was never there. You feel something in your pocket vibrate. Your phone. No, it's off. You reach in. It's the copper bracelet, now glowing faintly. You drop it. The glow fades. The woman next to you finally speaks. That was new. Oh, good. You've unlocked a new behavior in the haunted lake ghost. Always a great achievement. But it's not over, because far across the lake a light appears. A single lantern, red, flickering. Then another, and another. A line of lights forming a ring on the water's surface. You count them, 37. Same number as those unaccounted for souls. The wind picks up again. The air smells like rain and rot. And far, far in the distance, you hear something you wish you didn't. A fifth toll, not from the lake. From behind you, the hill, where the stone slab sits. You turn slowly, and something is standing there. Not a person, not quite, but it's wearing your face. You don't scream. Because if you do, it'll hear you, and it already looks like you. So you just blink, slowly, like maybe it's a hallucination. And if you act chill enough, your brain will go, "Oh, sorry, my bad," and delete it. But no, it's still there, still you. Same height, same jacket, same anxious posture, except the eyes are wrong. Your eyes don't glow like submerged lanterns, and they definitely don't blink out of sync. The others don't seem to notice. They're still facing the lake, transfixed by those floating red lights, and the ghost town that just faded like mist. The fifth toll doesn't echo, it settles. Like a heavy stone dropped into the middle of your thoughts. Then, movement. Your doppelganger tilts its head, mirroring you almost perfectly. Almost. You don't stand that stiffly. You don't have that twitch. It lifts one arm, and you mirror it reflexively, like a bad mime show, and that's when you see it. Its hands aren't your hands. They're webbed. Thin, translucent skin stretches between the fingers like a bat wing. The nails are too long, too sharp, and they're dripping. You step back. It steps forward. You do the only thing that makes sense when confronted with a lake-born horror wearing your face. You run, straight downhill into the tree's branches, whipping your arms, your breath, catching in your throat like a caught thread. Behind you, footsteps. Not yours, not quite human, too slappy, like bare feet on wet stone. You glance over your shoulder because apparently you haven't learned your horror movie lessons, and it's still following, but slower now. Watching, mocking. Eventually you reach your car. You fling the door open and slam it shut behind you, locking everything twice. Then you sit in the driver's seat, panting skin, buzzing with leftover terror, and wait. Nothing. No figure in the rear view, no webbed hands on the windshield, just silence, and the lingering taste of lake water in your mouth, even though you haven't touched the lake. You go home, shower for 40 minutes, like it's a ritual, and then lie in bed, eyes wide, waiting for sleep that never comes. The next morning you return to the history books, because clearly information is your only weapon now. You track down records on doppelganger folklore. They're in every culture, by the way. In Norse legend, they're called Varduger spirit doubles that precede you doing your tasks before you even arrive. In German tradition, they're omens. If you see your double, you're fated to die. Comforting. One theory suggests doppelgangers are echoes from parallel timelines, like shadows of other yous, trying to slip through dimensional cracks. But one obscure Scottish tale catches your eye. It describes a drowned village, cursed by the borrowed self, a being that mimics the living until it can replace them entirely. Its goal isn't to kill, it's to become. According to the tale, the only way to stop it is to catch it between reflections. Two mirrors angled precisely at the stroke of midnight. You're not sure whether to laugh or cry. Instead, you go mirror shopping. You find two decent ones at a thrift store. They don't match, but hey, neither do your socks, and you've survived this long. That night, you set them up in your living room. Angled just so. You wait. Nothing appears. Just you. Baggy-eyed, barefoot, holding a spray bottle of lake salt water like it's holy. You start carrying a compact mirror in your pocket everywhere you go, like a ghost-detecting Boy Scout. And slowly things get quieter. The singing doesn't return the next full moon. The lights don't rise. No more ghost town. No more doppelganger. You start to think maybe you hallucinated the whole thing, that your stress and sleep deprivation finally merged into a bespoke psychosis. Then you get a call. It's the boy with the Polaroid. You'd given him your number, mostly out of solidarity. He sounds breathless, panicked. He says, I developed the photo from that night. You're in it. Yeah, that makes sense. But you're also standing behind yourself. Less sense. You meet at a diner near the edge of the forest. He slides the photo across the table, and there it is, you sitting on the ridge, lantern in your lap, staring at the lake, and behind you, another you, eyes blank, hands reaching, not touching, just waiting. The boy says he hasn't been able to sleep. He hears the singing even during the day now. Not out loud in his headphones, no matter what he plays. Sometimes reversed, sometimes layered under static, but always there. And worst of all, he's started seeing people he knows, but they're slightly off. His mom making tea with salt instead of sugar. His best friend blinking sideways. His own face in the bathroom mirror, smiling before he does. You leave the diner together. On the way out, you both catch a glimpse of the server wiping down a table. She's humming, and it's the song. You don't mention it to each other. You just speed walk to the parking lot. Before parting ways, he hands you the photo. It's yours, he says. You're the one it wants. Fun. Back home, you tape the photo to the wall. Then you burn some sage. Not because you believe it'll help, but because it makes the place smell less like fear. You start researching old burial customs again, and something new comes up. In some Welsh villages, when they drowned towns to make reservoirs, they held symbolic funerals for the land itself, believing that the spirits displaced might otherwise wander. But Caelan's hollow, no records of a rite, no memorial, just water and forgetfulness. Historians still argue whether the absence of ceremony was intentional, an effort to erase what had happened, or simply oversight. You don't think it was oversight. You think something wanted to be left behind. And maybe it's trying to come back through you. So you start planning. Not a ritual exactly. More like a reckoning. You're going back to the lake. But this time you'll be ready. With mirrors. With salt. With names and history and stories. No one told out loud. You're not just a listener anymore. You're a witness. And if something steps out of that water again, you'll meet it. Eye to eye. Reflection to reflection. You return to the lake on the third full moon since the incident. There's something about threes in folklore, 3 days, 3 visits, 3 chances. You're not sure which category this visit falls into, but it feels like a finale. Like the closing movement in a very slow, very creepy symphony. The drive is quiet. No radio, no podcast. Just the occasional hum of tires on asphalt and the low groan of your old heater. You've packed light. 2 mirrors, angled brackets, duct tape, and a thick line of salt. A thermos of coffee, because caffeine is courage, obviously. And a journal full of note symbols, and that Polaroid now creased at the corners, like it's been handled too often. The lake is just as you left it. Calm. Still. Falsely so. You set up camp a little farther from the ridge. This time closer to the tree line, like maybe the woods will protect you if things go sideways. Spoiler alert, they won't. But let's pretend. You watch the moon rise. It's swollen, yellow, full. Again, you check your phone for the time 11:48 p.m. 12 minutes. You position the mirrors in a V-shape edges, just barely touching at the vertex. You aim the open point at the lake, just like the old legend suggested, so the reflections will fold in on each other infinitely. You stand behind them, heart rabbit quick, and wait. And just when you think maybe nothing will happen this time, the singing starts. You hear it before the wind shifts high and distant like voices caught in a bottle. But this time you hum back. You match the melody note for note, because you want it to know you remember. The lake responds. The lights return, this time not just red. Some flicker orange or blue or a shade of pale green that makes your stomach drop for no real reason you can explain. You see the buildings rise again, more solid this time, more real. You spot the chapel spire first, then the sagging rooftops of cottages, half swallowed by time. And then it appears, the double. But this time it doesn't look exactly like you. It looks like your fear of you, like the version of yourself that never healed. Dark shadows under the eyes. Hair matted like it's been submerged for days. Limbs stiff like something reanimated instead of born. It stands at the center of the lake, barefoot on the surface. And it points at you. The mirrors tremble. You stand your ground, even though your legs want to sprint, all the way back to your car, and then straight into the sun. The reflection in the mirror doesn't match the being at the lake. It moves faster, more erratic. Its gestures are jerky, like a puppet on tangled strings. But as it twitches closer through the layers of mirror, it slows, begins to align. You see it now, the layers, your reflection, then your shadow, then the drowned double, all stacked on top of each other like someone tracing over the same image until the lines blur. You step closer, careful. You pull out your journal and read aloud the name of the village, Kaelin's Hollow. The double shudders. You read more. The village was taken, drowned by decree, forgotten by time. The church tower was the last to vanish beneath the waves, and the double tilts its head. You hold up the Polaroid, pointing it toward the mirror. You say you don't belong here. Then you say your own name, your full name. 3 times, the double screams. It's not a sound, it's a wave of feeling. Regret, hunger, longing. The wind kicks up. The lights in the lake surge. And behind the double, reflected, but only in the mirror you see them. The villagers, translucent figures in soaked period clothing, faces solemn. Not angry, not vengeful. Just tired, like they've been waiting. And behind them, the chapel, solid again. Its bell begins to toll, not once, not twice, but continuously in a heartbeat rhythm that makes your stomach cramp. And then crack. One mirror splinters. You duck, shielding your face as glass skitters across the ground. But the angle remains. Somehow the reflection holds. And the double lunges straight into the mirror. You scream, but not out loud. Just in your head, like your mind slams its own panic button. The being passes through, but it hits the salt line. Stops, screeches, not in pain, in denial. It tries again, pressed palms against the invisible barrier, glaring at you. And here's the thing. You glare back. You say, go back. You say it again louder. And the villagers behind it, they nod. One by one they reach out. They pull it back. And for a moment the double doesn't fight. It weeps. Then the water surges upward like a reverse waterfall. The chapel collapses into light. And they're gone. All of them. The mirror cracks again, then falls apart entirely, the final shard hissing as it hits the salt. You sit down shaking. The singing has stopped. The lights are gone. The lake looks like a lake again. Just water rippling under moonlight. No buildings. No faces. No you but not you. You check the time, 12:03 a.m. You don't sleep that night, but you don't run either. At dawn the fog clears early. You see the edge of the old bell tower, peeking just barely above the surface. But it doesn't shimmer. It's stone now. Real, which means it stayed just a little. You pack up. Take what's left of the mirror pieces and bury them near the tree line. No sense littering cursed shards everywhere. Then you leave. Not fast, not scared, just quieter. That night you sleep. Really sleep. No songs, no dreams, no waking up to your own voice humming from the closet. Just rest. You almost forget what it felt like before. But memory has a funny way of resurfacing when you least want it. Especially in water. 2 weeks pass. The moon isn't full and the lake is just a distant memory. You've gone back to life, sort of. You drink your morning coffee again without jumping at your reflection in the microwave door. You scroll through your phone, respond to texts, even hit maybe on a friend's party invite, like the normal socially hesitant human you are. But the journal stays close. You keep it by your bed, not because you're planning on going back, of course. You'd never do something that reckless again. Definitely not. Definitely maybe. One afternoon, while flipping back through your scribbles, you notice something you hadn't before. A line of faded ink slanted diagonally across a page you thought was blank. It reads, "We surface where we are remembered." You don't remember writing that. Actually, it's not even your handwriting. You run your fingers over the page. The ink is faint but recent, still smudges under your thumb. Weird. But you shrug it off. Maybe a note from the librarian. Maybe your own midnight rambling scrawl. You close the journal. The same night your dream returns, except it's not yours. It's from their side. You see it now, Kalen's Hollow before the flood. Children chasing dogs across cobbled paths. A woman stirring something thick and gray in a cauldron. A man carrying armfuls of dried lavender toward the chapel, his boots sloshing through marshy soil. It's mundane, beautiful even. And then the sound, the horn, modern, mechanical, followed by voices not from the village, voices in suits. Words like eminent domain and hydroelectric viability. And just like that, you watch it happen. The floodgates open, the villagers scream, and you somehow still yourself. In this dream, stand on the edge, watching it happen, with dry feet and a clipboard. The guilt is not yours, but it clings. You wake up with your hands in fists, and your pillow soaked not with sweat, but with water. Real water. Your window's closed, no leak. You don't talk about it. Instead, you research. Deep dive. Rabbit hole time. You find that the real Kalen's Hollow wasn't marked on modern maps, but it is mentioned briefly in the margins of a local environmental report from the 1930s. Population at time of relocation 112. Compensation delivered $0. Reason no formal documentation of settlement. Erased by a technicality, erased by design. You follow the trail university archives, microfilm readers, late-night forums. That's when you find her. Margaret Elsinore, school teacher, violinist, last known voice of Kalen's Hollow. In her final letter, never mailed but preserved in a relative's attic, she writes, "They call it progress, but what does progress cost when it silences a song?" You pause there, because the melody, the one you heard by the lake, the one you hummed back, was from a lullaby. Margaret's lullaby, documented in an old folk collection under the title Hollow Hymn. You find the sheet music. Try playing it on a virtual keyboard. It's haunting. Not evil, just sad, like a bedtime song for children who were never tucked in again. Historians still argue whether Margaret survived the flood or was among those who stayed behind. Some say she fled. Others say she stood on the chapel roof, with her violin playing until the last bell rang. You believe the second. It feels true. And so without fully thinking it through, you do something dumb. Again, you record the hymn. Your voice is shaky, sure, and you need 3 takes just to get the pitch right. But you post it online anyway, attaching only the title, The Forgotten Village Lullaby. You go to sleep. That night there's no dream. But in the morning your video has 12,407 views and 112 comments, exactly 1 in 12. You scroll through them. Most are benign, creepy but beautiful. Why does this give me chills? This melody sounds familiar, like ancestral, but one comment stands out. It reads, "Thank you, we remember." You check the account. No posts, no followers, just a blank icon and a username in Gaelic that roughly translates to "still beneath." Your doorbell rings. You jump. It's the mail carrier holding a padded envelope. No return address. Inside a violin string, water-warped sheet music, and a photo black and white taken from across the lake. You recognize it. It's the same ridge. But in this photo, you can clearly see the figures. Not ghosts, people, children mostly, standing just under the surface, their faces turned toward the lens. Not smiling, not scowling, just watching. You flip the photo over. There's a name scrawled in pencil, Margaret, and a date, yesterday's date. You don't scream. Not because you're brave, but because your throat locks. Your mind runs down the list of rational explanations. You come up empty. Later that night, you walk down to your apartment building's laundry room, needing a moment away from your own walls. There, tucked into the bulletin board, under a faded washer out of order sign, is another note, folded, addressed to you. Inside it reads, "We hear you." That's it. No threats, no riddles. Just those 3 words written in looping cursive. And for the first time, you realize the singing hasn't stopped. You just stopped noticing. It's in the background now, soft and constant. Not loud enough to disrupt, just present. You've become the tuning fork. You've brought them back. Not entirely, but enough. You sit on the cold linoleum floor and listen. And as sleep pulls at you from the edges of your vision, you hum along again. Because it seems polite, you wake to the sound of someone humming in your kitchen. Not in a someone broke in and is now preparing coffee kind of way. No, this is quieter, older, like a grandmother humming while stirring a pot that's been simmering since the Great Depression. The song is the same one, Margaret's Lullaby. You swing your feet to the floor, every creak of the floorboards sounding accusatory. You tiptoe toward the kitchen, half expecting a transparent woman in a long dress to be floating above your sink. There's no one there, but the kettle is boiling and your window, the one you definitely closed before bed, is open. A slight breeze brushes past your cheek, carrying the scent of lavender. Not your usual scent profile. Not unpleasant, just wrong, like a page torn from the wrong chapter of your day. You close the window. As you move to shut it, your eyes drift toward the lake. Even though you're miles away, you swear you see a shimmer like the moonlight is bending slightly in one spot. And yeah, it's probably just a trick of your tired eyes. Probably. You sit down, toast a bagel, and ignore the violin string on your fridge held up with a magnet that says "I Ghost Tours." You pretend you're not Googling residual haunting versus intelligent haunting as you chew. You tell yourself again that it's all just very elaborate suggestion. That's when your phone buzzes. It's a direct message from a name you don't recognize, Kaylin Watcher 112. They write you gave them voice, now help give them peace. You stare at it for a while. Then you type how. No reply. That day you visit the local archives again. The librarian recognizes you now, offers you tea, asks if you're still looking into the forgotten place. You nod. She hesitates, then leans in. You're not the first, she whispers. She tells you about others. A radio host in the 1970s who tried playing the hollow hymn on air signal went dead halfway through. A graduate student in the 1990s who wrote a thesis on Kaylin's hollow and disappeared on her way to the oral defense. Their notes were found waterlogged. Their umbrellas were not. The librarian places a folder in front of you, inside sketches, not photos, drawings. People in flowing ancient-style clothing, eyes hollowed out with charcoal, but always in groups of 112, always beneath the surface. One page shows the chapel, submerged, still intact. Your fingers linger there. That night the dreams return, but this time you're not just watching. You're inside the chapel, kneeling by the altar. Margaret stands beside you, silent, her violin in her hands. You don't need her to speak. The air between you feels like a conversation. She lifts her bow, begins to play. It isn't just a lullaby anymore, it's a requiem. And behind her the villagers line the pews. Not angry, not happy, just waiting for the final note. When you wake up, you know what to do. You pack your things, the journal, the photograph, the string, the sheet music. You drive to the lake. The full moon is only 2 nights away, but you don't think you can wait. Not this time. You paddle out in a rented canoe. You stop above the place you know the chapel rests. That unmistakable dip in the lake, marked by that feeling in your chest, like you've left a piece of your mind underwater. You take out your phone, begin to play the lullaby again, out loud, this time with no fear. Your voice is steadier. You don't try to make it perfect, you just sing. And when you finish, you drop the violin string into the water. Then the photo, then the pages. You whisper, "Go home." And then for reasons you don't entirely understand, you let your hand rest just beneath the surface. It's cold, sure, but then it grows warm, like someone is holding it, not pulling, just there, accompanying. And when you pull your hand back, your fingers are damp, but your skin feels unburdened. That night back home, you sleep without dreams. No singing, no footsteps, just silence, not the eerie kind, the peaceful kind. Historians still argue whether rituals like that actually work, whether closure is something that can be given or if it has to be earned. Some call it folklore, others call it psychology, wrapped in ghost stories. You just call it Tuesday, because when you wake up the next morning, the journal is gone, vanished from your nightstand. In its place, a single pressed sprig of lavender. You keep it, frame it actually, hang it beside your window, the one you never close anymore. Because sometimes you still hear things, not words, just breath on the wind, just melodies on the breeze. And once in a while, if you walk past someone humming a familiar tune, you don't interrupt. You just nod, because you know who they're remembering, and you know they're not alone. So you start thinking, if one village disappeared, how many others are whispering beneath lakes and rivers under new towns and old silence? How many songs like Margaret's are woven into the wind and mistaken for the moan of old plumbing or an owl in the trees? It gnaws at you gently, like a toothless curiosity. You become the kind of person who lingers in antique shops longer than necessary, who pauses at faded maps framed in museums. You look for the telltale markers, those places that stopped appearing on road signs sometime between the Cold War and Netflix. There's a term for them: lost settlements. Dozens across the world, flooded to make way for hydroelectric dams, reservoirs, artificial lakes. Sometimes it was for progress. Sometimes it was to erase something inconvenient. And sometimes no one really says why. One such place was Imber in England, evacuated in 1943 for military training never returned. Its church still stands empty, visited once a year. Or Tequendama Falls in Colombia, where legend says the ghosts of broken-hearted lovers adrift in mist, so thick you could paint with it. These places don't stay silent forever. They leave echoes. You realize Margaret's lullaby wasn't just a haunting, it was a memoir. You start transcribing her melody by ear. You hum it softly into your phone, add chords, ask a musicologist friend what scale it's in. Turns out it's closest to a medieval mode, Phrygian they say. Dark brooding, used often in church chants before harmony became a thing. You post the sheet music online. No caption, just "Do you know this tune?" Replies trickle in. One user from Bavaria says their grandmother used to hum the same thing at bedtime, calling it Der Wasserschlaf, the water sleep. Another from the southern U.S. swears their great-aunt in Louisiana whistled it in a nursing home, claiming it was a warning for the rain swallowed. No one knows where it started, but people know it. That's what spooks you the most. You thought you'd found something uniquely local, some oddity in the folds of one half-forgotten American lake. But now, you realize you'd brushed against a deeper current, and that current runs everywhere. Historians still argue whether these recurring motif songs, chant stories are cultural memory, or just eerie coincidence. Jung would have said it's the collective unconscious leaking through. But who knows? Maybe it's just that ghosts like people crave familiarity. You get more messages, not from ghost hunters or skeptics, from people who feel seen. A woman from Maine sends you a photo of a carved wooden pendant she found while hiking, etched with 112 tiny notches in a spiral. An old man from Wales records himself telling a story from his childhood about a stone chapel that would sing in the mist. You begin to track the similarities. Each story includes water. Each one involves music, and every single one mentions a number, usually 112, sometimes a variation, but always grouped, always waiting. You start seeing it in your dreams again. Not Margaret, not the villagers, just water, still dark, endless, and from beneath it, a vibration. Not a sound you can hear, a sound you feel, like your chest is a tuning fork, like the lake remembers you. You go back one last time, full moon again. You row out to the middle. You bring nothing this time, no violin string, no journal, just silence. And as you float there, the lake perfectly glassy, you whisper, I hear you. You don't expect anything in return, but you get something anyway. The faintest glow beneath the surface. It pulses once, then fades. A goodbye maybe, or a thank you, or just acknowledgement. Then the water goes still again. The sky clouds over a breeze, picks up, and you row back to shore with arms heavy but spirit light. After that, the singing stops. You still hear music sometimes in the wind, in the creaks of your house, but it's different now. Not a warning, not a plea. More like a lullaby for you this time, as if something beneath the surface is saying, rest now. We've got it from here. Time passes. You don't visit the lake again, not because you're afraid, but because you don't need to. It's part of you now. And not in the horror movie possession kind of way, but in the you once loved someone, and now they live in your breath kind of way. You keep working, of course. Bills don't disappear just because you had a cosmic run-in with a chorus of water-bound souls. But your focus shifts. You write more. Not just posts, but essays, audio pieces, weird little articles on folklore and memory, and the acoustics of submerged architecture. You find out that some archaeologists use sonar mapping to trace the remains of drowned settlements, cities swallowed by man-made lakes and forgotten until the technology caught up. In 2014, they discovered the ruins of Shicheng, a 600-year-old Chinese city perfectly preserved under Qiandao Lake. Buildings, roads, even engraved arches, all under 130 feet of water. Margaret would have fit in there too, you think? Still something nags. It's not about closure. You've got that. It's more like continuation. You wonder what happens to other songs, other villages, the ones without curious loners to hear their echoes. So you start collecting. You set up a little project online. People send in recordings, grandparents humming in dusty kitchens, field workers chanting before sunrise, fragments of melody found on cassette tapes in attic shoeboxes. You build a digital archive. You call it choral memory. It grows faster than expected. There's no pattern. Songs from the Philippines match motifs from Hungary. Lullabies from Arctic communities echo lines from Greek island fishermen. Historians still argue whether these patterns are coincidence or proof of ancient migration of interlinked language roots and parallel development. But to you they feel like footprints, tiny musical footprints, the kind left by people who didn't expect to be remembered but sang anyway. And somewhere along the way, you realize this is no longer about ghosts. It's about legacy. Because what is a ghost, if not memory, refusing to die quietly? You receive a package one morning, no return address. Inside is a rusted tin box. You pop it open carefully, half expecting dramatic music to cue up from nowhere. Inside a torn photograph, a piece of charcoal, and a folded scrap of sheet music. The photo shows a girl with long hair standing near a body of water. The sky looks heavy. Her face is turned, but you swear somewhere deep in your chest you recognize her. You play the melody on your keyboard. It's familiar, different key, slower pace, but it's Margaret's song. Someone else knew it. Someone else remembered. The charcoal. You realize it's been used to draw, on the inside of the tin lid 1K12, tiny hatch marks in a circle around one bold dot in the center. Whatever this is, it's not just yours anymore. It's a network, a constellation of forgotten voices linking hands across time and space, quietly humming beneath the noise of the world. You keep going. You speak at a conference, low budget, full of hopeful grad students, and 3 people who definitely believe in Bigfoot. You tell your story anyway. No one laughs. One woman cries. A podcaster reaches out. The episode goes modestly viral. Suddenly, you've got emails, interviews, even a college radio DJ in Wisconsin playing your archived water songs as a midnight segment called Sleep Drowned Sleep Deep. Weird flex, but it works. And one night while editing a track, you notice something strange. You isolate a clip from a 1940s Appalachian lullaby. Slow it down, invert it, filter the background noise. And there it is. Margaret's melody, 4 notes, same intervals, embedded like a fossil. You sit back. You smile. Not everything needs to be explained. Some things just are. Maybe Margaret wasn't a single girl. Maybe she was many. Or maybe she was everyone. And now you're part of the song too. It no longer frightens you. The singing, the silence, the water. It's all music now. Even the stillness, even the quiet, even the dark. We're count 1052. Wind down 300 words. And now with your eyes heavy and your breath soft, it's time to let go of the echoes. The lake has gone still again, its surface smooth and dreamless, under a moon that no longer needs to watch. The villagers sleep their stories safely tucked into the folds of memory and myth. Margaret's voice has softened into a lullaby, not meant to haunt but to hush, to soothe, to remind. Whatever weight you carried when we began, let it drift now like fog over water. Unclench your jaw. Soften your shoulders. Let your thoughts slow, unspooling like a ribbon in warm current. You've walked through lost towns and sunken chapels. You've listened to music the world tried to forget. And now it's time to rest. Imagine the lake again, not with fear but with familiarity. The way it holds secrets not out of malice but reverence. A library with no door, a song with no end. Feel the hush deepen, the kind of quiet that holds you, not traps you, the kind that invites sleep. So inhale once more, slow and gentle, and exhale even slower. The world can wait. The moon can keep watch, and whatever dreams find you next, they'll hum in tune with something older, something kind, something just beneath the surface. Sleep now. You're safe. You're home. End of script. Sweet dreams.